The twin suns beat down on the desert planet of Zareth. Sand stretched for miles, shimmering under the heat like liquid gold. In the distance, the tall silver towers of Carex's city rose sharply against the horizon. But today they were nothing to her. Today the towers felt like cages. Carex stumbled through the dry sand, her robes torn and dusty. Her arms ached, her legs burned, and her throat was parched. She had refused the marriage that her people demanded. Refusing it was unthinkable, dishonorable. But Carex had said no. She would not marry a man she did not love, a man chosen only for politics and power. The council had punished her in the cruelest way they could. They left her outside the city walls, far from water, far from help. The desert was not kind to those who crossed tradition. Even the sun seemed to punish her for her defiance. Carex sank to the ground, burying her face in her arms. She had expected some punishment, perhaps a warning, but not this. She had expected anger, yes, but she did not expect to be abandoned like a broken thing. She felt invisible, as if the world itself had turned away. She tried to stand, shaking her head, refusing to accept that this was her end. Her mind raced with thoughts. I did nothing wrong. I only said no. Only, no. But the desert offered no reply. Only the wind whispered around her, carrying grains of hot sand across her skin. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed to stretch endlessly under the twin suns. Carex's strength was fading, her vision blurring. Her mind floated between hope and despair. She thought of her city, of her people, of everything she had once believed in. And then she thought of nothing. Above, the sky shimmered. A small dot grew larger in the distance. At first, Carex thought it was a mirage. She had seen mirages before, shimmering towers of water in the desert that disappeared when she reached them. But this was different. It moved steadily with purpose. It was a ship, a human ship. Humans were rare here, outsiders who traveled between worlds. Usually they passed by without noticing Zareth, uninterested in alien politics or customs. But now one ship had noticed her. The ship hovered above the sand, lowering a small landing pod. Carex tried to wave, but her arm would barely lift. She was so tired, so weak. The pod touched the ground and a human figure stepped out. Tall, strong, with a uniform that gleamed under the sun, he moved with quiet confidence. He looked at her with steady eyes, not with judgment or anger, not with curiosity or fear, but with concern. Carex could not speak. Words had left her long ago. All she could do was stare, trying to make sense of this unexpected savior. The human walked slowly toward her. Every step was careful, as if he knew how fragile life could be. Carex felt something she had not felt in hours: hope. It was small, a spark barely burning in her chest, but it was there. He knelt in front of her and reached out. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice calm, steady, and human. His words were simple, easy to understand, yet they carried something stronger, the idea that someone cared. Someone was here for her. Carex tried to nod, but her head dropped. She could barely breathe, barely lift herself from the sand. The human did not hesitate. He bent carefully, lifted her into his arms, and carried her toward the ship. The warmth of his arms was strange but comforting. It was the first human touch that was gentle, the first touch that did not judge her or punish her. As he carried her, Carex felt the desert around her fade. The suns, the sand, the wind, all disappeared. All that mattered was the human holding her, steady and unyielding. For the first time she felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a life beyond the punishment and the rules. The ship's doors opened and he stepped inside with her. The metal floor was cool against her body, a sharp contrast to the burning sand outside. She could hear voices, other humans, but none seemed to question what had happened. They only moved to help, quietly, efficiently, as if saving someone was the most natural thing in the universe. Carex closed her eyes, letting the human carry her farther from the desert, farther from the world that had abandoned her. She did not know his name, she did not know why he had stopped for her, but she knew one thing: for the first time she felt safe. And in that safety, a small seed of trust began to grow. Carex slowly opened her eyes. The light was soft, not harsh like the twin suns outside. She blinked, trying to understand where she was. The human was there, sitting beside her on a small bed-like platform. His uniform was neat and his eyes were calm, but they held a strength that made her feel safe. "Can you move?" he asked, his voice quiet and careful. Carex shook her head weakly. Her body ached from the sun, the sand, and the long hours of walking. She felt small, almost fragile, like a broken piece of metal. The human didn't look away. He simply nodded and offered her water. The cool liquid slid down her throat, and she felt life returning slowly to her body. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Captain Elias Ward," he said. "I'm human." She had heard of humans before. They were strong, curious, and sometimes reckless. But she had never met one. Never up close. She had expected them to be strange, distant, or even cruel. But Elias did not seem any of those things. He seemed real. Carex tried to sit up, but her legs shook. He noticed immediately. Without a word, he helped her, supporting her with careful hands. She could feel the warmth of his presence. It was strange but comforting. "Why did you help me?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He looked at her steadily. "Because no one deserves to be left to die," he said simply. The words felt foreign. In her world, rules were stronger than compassion. Lives could be taken or abandoned for tradition, for honor, for politics. She had never heard anyone speak like that before. Her people would never have said such things. And yet, here he was, saving her without demand, without question. Hours passed. Carex learned that the ship was fast and well-equipped. The humans aboard moved efficiently, caring for her without fuss. They spoke in a language she could understand, but even if she hadn't, their actions said enough. No one laughed at her, no one judged her. They simply cared. She began to ask questions, small ones at first. Where was this ship from? Why were humans traveling here? Why did they care about a stranger from another world? Elias answered each one, patiently, never rushing, never frustrated. "You must be tired of your people," he said gently, noticing the pain in her eyes. "They left me," she whispered. "Because I said no. I said no to a marriage. They abandoned me." Her voice broke and she looked away. Elias didn't speak. He only waited, giving her space to breathe. After a long pause, he said softly, "You have the right to say no. Humans believe everyone has that right. No one can take it from you." The words felt like a shield around her heart. Carex had never felt so protected. She had never imagined that saying no could be defended, could be supported. Her world had taught her that obedience was everything, that refusing was weakness. And yet, here was a human showing her that refusing could be strength. As the sun set outside, painting the sky in deep orange and violet, Carex lay back. The human kept a quiet watch beside her. She could hear the soft hum of the ship, the gentle footsteps of crew members moving efficiently in the background. She did not know how long they would travel, or what awaited her outside the ship. She only knew she was alive. Days passed. Carex regained some strength, though her body still ached. She watched Elias as he moved around the ship, interacting with his crew, giving orders, helping others. He was not a hero in the stories her people told. He did not seek glory or power. But everything he did, his kindness, his courage, his willingness to stand for what was right, made Carex feel something she had never known: hope. One evening she finally asked the question she had been holding back. "What would happen if my people find me?" Elias looked at her calmly. "Then we face them. Together. But you are not alone anymore. You have a choice now, Carex. You can choose what happens next. Not them. You." The idea was foreign, almost frightening. In her world, she had never chosen for herself. Her choices had always been dictated by others, by tradition, by law, by expectation. And yet, for the first time, she realized that someone believed in her right to decide. Someone believed in her strength. That night, she lay in the soft bed, watching the stars through the small viewport. Her mind wandered over the desert she had left behind, the city that had abandoned her, and the strange, strong human who had carried her to safety. She did not yet understand the future or the battles that might come. But one thing was certain: for the first time in her life, she felt seen. Not as a pawn, not as a tool, not as someone to be used, but as a person. And in that quiet, soft moment, Carex felt the first spark of trust. She did not know where it would lead or what dangers might lie ahead. But she knew she would follow the human who had carried her into his arms. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy had never met humans like these before. Carex had grown stronger over the past days. Her arms and legs were no longer weak, and her mind was clearer. She could sit without shaking, and she could speak more easily. Still, she did not know what would happen when her people discovered she was gone. Far across the desert, in the tall silver towers of her city, alarms were sounding. Guards shouted and messengers ran through the streets. Carex had been taken, or had she left? No one knew. Her refusal to marry had already angered the council, but her disappearance now was a disgrace. The leaders called a meeting in the highest tower. They spoke in sharp, cold voices filled with fear and anger. "The human has taken her," one said. "We must demand her return. This is our law, our honor, our right." Another shook his head. If we strike now, the humans will fight. Their strength is not in armies alone, but in the courage of one. The council argued late into the night. Outside, the city lights blinked like stars against the dark desert. But inside, only worry and pride burned. They had never seen humans act like this. They had never expected a species to value one life so highly, above politics, above fear, above honor. On the ship, Carex sat quietly beside Elias. She could feel something in the air, though she could not see it. Something was coming. The hum of the engines seemed louder, the stars sharper. She asked him quietly, "Are they looking for me?" Elias nodded. "They are. But it does not matter. You are safe here. I will not hand you over." Carex studied him, trying to understand. "Why? Why do you care so much for me? I'm not one of your people. I'm not anything you need to save." Elias looked at her calmly. "Because you are alive. That is reason enough. Humans do not need another reason to protect someone. We do not leave people to die because of pride or rules." She wanted to argue, wanted to say that in her world, rules were everything. But something in her chest tightened and she stayed silent. She had seen what humans could do and she had felt it. It was not power, not fear, not anger. It was something else. Something stronger. A sudden alert sounded through the ship. Red lights flashed. Elias rose quickly, moving with speed and purpose. "Carex, stay here," he said. But she did not move. She wanted to see, wanted to understand. The viewport showed a fleet of ships in the distance, moving toward them. They were sleek, silver, and deadly. Carex recognized them immediately. They were from her world, sent to demand her return. "They want me back," she whispered, fear rising in her voice. Elias nodded. "Yes. But they will not get you unless you allow it. Humans do not follow fear. We stand for what is right." The fleet grew larger, surrounding the ship in a silent, threatening circle. Carex felt a wave of panic. Her people, who had abandoned her, now demanded her life as a prize. She looked at Elias, and though her heart raced, she saw no fear in his eyes. Only calm. Only determination. "You are not afraid?" she asked. "Of them?" he said, shaking his head. "No. I do not fight because I hate. I fight because I protect. That is different." She tried to understand. Her people valued power and fear above all. But Elias showed her that protection, compassion, and courage could be stronger than armies. The thought made her heart pound, and yet it gave her hope. Hours passed. The alien fleet stayed in formation, waiting. The humans on the ship moved calmly, preparing defenses, but never with aggression. Carex watched them and realized something amazing. Humans were united not by fear or rules, but by choice. Each person had decided to act. Each person had decided to protect her. For the first time, Carex did not feel small or powerless. She felt part of something greater. She felt that even against the might of her world, she could survive. And maybe, just maybe, she could fight in her own way, not with weapons, not with anger, but with courage and heart. Night came on the desert world below, painting the sands black with shadows. The twin moons rose, casting silver light across the city towers. The alien fleet hovered like predators, waiting for a sign. But Elias made no sign. He stood quietly on the bridge beside her, ready for what might come. Carex realized something important. Humans did not need to conquer to win. Humans did not need to force or demand. Humans only needed to stand. That simple act, that quiet bravery, was enough to change the world. As the stars shimmered around them, Carex whispered to herself, I think I can trust them." Elias looked at her and smiled faintly. "Good. Because that trust will be tested. But you are not alone anymore." Carex closed her eyes for a moment, letting the truth sink in. She had been left for dead by her own people. She had been abandoned because she said no. But here, with humans, she felt something new: safety, respect, and choice. She could decide her own path. And for the first time in her life, she felt the strength to face whatever was coming next. The alien fleet stayed in orbit above the desert planet, their silver ships glinting under the twin suns. Carex stood on the deck beside Elias, looking at them. She felt her heart beat fast. The ships were huge, and their numbers were more than she had ever imagined. Every commander in her city had believed that humans would be afraid. But Elias did not move away, did not hesitate. He simply stood, calm, steady, ready. "Are they going to attack?" Carex asked, her voice small. "No," Elias said. "Not unless they try to harm you. Humans do not attack without reason." Carex studied him. She had expected humans to be reckless, violent, or selfish. But Elias and his crew were not like that. They were strong, yes, but their strength came from something else. unity, courage, and the desire to protect. It was frightening, and at the same time, it gave her hope. The alien ships hovered closer, sending messages. Their voices were harsh, demanding, filled with anger. "Return Carex immediately," they said. "You have no right to take her. She belongs to us." Elias shook his head. "She belongs to herself," he said quietly. "No one else has that right." Carex felt something warm in her chest. For the first time, someone spoke for her, not for politics, not for law, not for honor. For her. The aliens activated energy shields on their ships. Their fleet was ready to attack, ready to force her back. But Elias and his crew did not panic. They moved calmly, preparing defenses. Carex noticed that no one raised weapons aggressively. The humans were protecting, not threatening. The first test came suddenly. One alien ship launched a beam toward the human ship. The humans moved quickly, creating a shield that absorbed the blast. Carex felt the vibration of the ship beneath her feet. She had expected chaos, panic, screams, but there were none. Every human on board moved with quiet confidence. Every movement was precise, coordinated. "They are stronger than I imagined," Carex whispered. Elias looked at her. "It is not just strength," he said. "It is the way we fight. We fight for people, not power. That makes all the difference." Another blast came. The human shields moved again, protecting the ship without breaking formation. Carex realized something incredible. Humans did not rely on fear or rules to protect each other. They relied on trust, courage, and choice. They chose to stand together, and that choice made them nearly unstoppable. Carex's people were watching from above. She knew their eyes were filled with disbelief. They had expected her to be weak, helpless, afraid. But they had never seen humans like this, humans willing to risk everything for one life. "Why are they doing this?" she asked, still struggling to understand. "Because we can," Elias said. "Because it is the right thing. Because we will not let fear control us." The alien commanders hesitated. They had power, numbers, and weapons. But they had never faced humans who fought with compassion instead of anger. They had never seen courage born from care. Their plans felt small, fragile, and wrong against this force. Hours passed. The fleet tried to surround the human ship, but the humans moved with skill, defending without attacking unnecessarily. Carex watched in awe. Each human acted not out of duty, not out of fear, not out of pride, but because they chose to protect. She could feel the difference. At one point, an alien ship tried to block the human ship's path. Elias walked calmly to the bridge and spoke to it directly. "Move aside," he said. "There is no need for destruction today." Carex could not believe it. The humans were not threatening. They were not demanding. They were simply standing, firm and unafraid, showing that one life mattered more than any battle, more than any law, more than any pride. The alien ships slowly began to pull back. They realized that attacking would not win this fight. Their rules, their codes, their armies, they were powerless against the quiet courage of humans protecting what mattered. Carex felt a wave of relief and awe. She turned to Elias. You didn't fight to destroy them. You just protected me." He smiled faintly. "That is what humans do. We protect life. We stand for people. That is stronger than weapons, stronger than armies. That is why we survive." Carex looked out at the stars, then back at the retreating fleet. She felt something she had never felt before. Hope. Hope that her life could belong to her. Hope that the galaxy might see humans as more than just outsiders. Hope that maybe, just maybe, one person could make a difference. And in that moment, she knew she had made the right choice in trusting them. She had been abandoned once. Left to die. But now, in the arms of humans who chose to protect her, Carex realized something powerful. Courage, compassion, and choice could change everything. The twin suns set behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert below. Carex stood beside Elias, not afraid, not weak, not alone. She had survived the first test. And she knew that together they could face whatever the galaxy sent next. The alien fleet retreated slowly, disappearing into the distance, their silver ships like shadows fading from the stars. Carex stood on the deck beside Elias, her heart still racing from the confrontation. She had expected fear, chaos, or anger. But she had seen something else, strength born from courage, unity, and choice. Humans did not need to fight to win. They protected life, and that made them unstoppable. For a long moment, Carex looked out at the endless desert below. Her city, her people, the towers she had once believed in, they felt small, distant, and unimportant. She had been abandoned once for refusing to obey. Left to die because of pride, tradition, and rules that valued nothing but control. And now here she was, alive, protected, and free. "Where will they go?" she asked softly, nodding toward the retreating fleet. "They will return," Elias said quietly. "But they will not fight again. Not like this. They have seen what humans can do when they protect what matters. That will stay with them." Carex thought about that. Her people had expected her to be weak, afraid, and obedient. They had never imagined someone would care enough to stand for her life. And she had learned something important. Humans were different. Not stronger because of power, but because of heart. Because of choice. Days passed as the ship moved through space. Carex regained full strength, learning about humans, their ways, their lives, and their choices. She watched Elias and his crew work together, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to. They laughed, helped each other, and protected each other without hesitation. She had never seen such unity. One evening, she asked Elias quietly, "Will my people try again?" He shook his head. "They might. But that does not matter. You have a choice now, Carex. You can decide your own life. No one else controls it. Not tradition. Not fear. Not anyone." Carex thought of the desert, of the towers, of the council that had abandoned her. She thought of the humans who had chosen to save her, who had carried her from the sands and protected her from harm. She realized something she had never understood before. Freedom was not just a word. It was a right. A power. A chance to live for yourself, not for others' rules. When the ship reached a quiet orbit above a peaceful planet, Carex made her choice. She would not return to the city. She would not obey the rules that had tried to destroy her. She would stay with humans, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, not as someone they needed to save, but as someone who had earned her place beside them. Elias watched her carefully. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. Carex nodded. "I am sure. You carried me when my world left me. You protected me when no one else would. I want to be part of that. I want to learn. I want to live." Elias smiled faintly. "Then welcome aboard, Carex." The humans around them cheered softly but not loudly. It was quiet celebration, the kind that came from respect, not victory. Carex felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. She was not a pawn, not a tool, not a political prize. She was alive. She was free. She was part of something greater. News of her choice spread across the stars. Other alien worlds watched with surprise and curiosity. They had never seen humans act like this. Willing to protect, willing to stand for one life against an entire fleet, willing to risk everything not for conquest but for compassion. Carex's people were shocked. The council had expected her to return in fear, obedient and quiet. Instead, she had chosen differently. She had chosen herself. And by doing so, she had shown them something they had never considered, that life and choice mattered more than law, more than pride, more than power. In the quiet of the ship, Carex stood beside Elias again. The twin suns of a distant system rose on the horizon, golden and bright. She breathed deeply, feeling the warmth on her face, the hum of the engines beneath her feet, and the presence of humans who had chosen to stand beside her. "I never imagined this," she said softly. "That life could be like this, that someone would fight for me." Elias put a hand on her shoulder. "Humans do it for each other. For the people they care about. And sometimes for strangers who need help. That is how we survive. That is how we change the world." Carex looked out at the stars. She thought of the desert she had left behind, the city that had abandoned her, and the fleet that had tried to take her back. She realized something important. Her life was hers now. She could choose her path. She could decide her future. And she would never forget the humans who had shown her how. The ship glided forward through the stars, carrying her away from a world that had tried to break her. She felt hope, strength, and courage growing inside her. She felt a bond with Elias and his crew, a bond stronger than fear, stronger than tradition, stronger than anything her world had ever taught her. And as she looked out at the endless sky, she whispered quietly, "I will live, and I will never let anyone take that away again." The galaxy was vast, and her journey had just begun. But one thing was certain, humans were powerful not because of weapons, armies, or laws, but because they chose to protect life, to stand for what is right, and to fight for hope. Carex smiled, finally at peace. She had been abandoned, left for dead, and yet here she was, alive, free and ready for the future. And she knew that wherever humans went, courage, compassion, and hope would follow.